Hi, and welcome to your Yin 60 class. So this class is all about finding what our needs are. And it's really important to tune into finding out what we need in any particular moment and getting into the practice of doing so on a regular basis. Even if that's once a day or once a week, the more we can do it, the better. So this class is all about tuning in. And as you can see, I've got a lot of props with me here because that's going to give us the opportunity to invite ourselves to ask the questions of what do we need within our practice. And the aim of this is so that we have a strong foundation for setting boundaries for ourselves and maintaining our own self-care. Without it, our self-care can start to slip away. So maintaining those boundaries and setting them and keeping hold of them actually comes hand in hand with asking what we need. So I've got everything out. I've got a bolster, I've got 2 bricks, I've got a block, a blanket, and I've also got a chair. I'm not going to be using every single one of these props within the class, but I've got them out just so that I can switch things up and explore a little bit. And that's the aim of today's class. So there's going to be an opportunity of choice. There's going to be lots of variations going on within the class as well. And sometimes that can feel a little bit overwhelming. So I will always choose one route. So if you feel more comfortable to be led, then feel free to take that option. But I would like to invite you to explore the position that we're in and to switch things out to see if you can make yourself feel more comfortable, more at ease, and decide what you need in that moment and in that position, how you can best support yourself. Because it's that lesson that's going to pull through for you to continue working towards your self-care. So if you need a moment to take yourself against a wall or grab a couple more props that you might need, feel free to hit pause and join us when you're ready. If you're ready to get started, I'm going to first close up this chair so that it's out of the way for me. And I'm going to invite you to start by settling in and grounding into a position of your choice. So some options here, if you're not that familiar with some starting or grounding positions for your practice. You could take a seated position like myself, or you can sit into a hero position on a brick, which would look like this. So we're supporting our hips. We're not having too much pressure going into the legs, and we're sitting up nice and tall. You can also take a reclined position here as well, if that feels more comfortable and more grounding for you. So bending into the knees, taking the legs out straight. And if you need a moment here just to pause and check in with yourself with what might feel more comfortable, then feel free to take that moment. And once you've discovered a potential starting position, allow yourself to arrive. Maybe just check back in, is this the correct position for you? What do you need, first of all, to help you ground? To help you find a sense of invitation into your practice. It helps you transition from the day that you've had into the self-care. And if you'd like to stay with the position that you're in, know that you can change it at any point. Invite you to close down the eyes. Or soften into the gaze if that's more comfortable. Just gently allowing yourself to notice, first of all, the points of contact that the body has on the mat beneath you, or any props that you've used. Maybe you tune into sitting bones, the support of the spine, the support of the floor beneath you. Just allowing ourselves to settle into our space, grounding us in the present. And just starting to tune in a little deeper, peeling back the layers nice and gently. See if you can tune into your emotional needs. Any bodily sensations that you might be feeling. Where can you feel them within the body? Maybe you can name them here. Acknowledging that they're present. Knowing that you don't need to do anything with them other than noticing. And if those words are beginning to become a little difficult to land with you, maybe you just notice the area in which you feel them within the body. If it feels helpful to acknowledge them by body parts or by an objective word, feel free to use that as well. Take a nice deep breath whenever you feel ready. Nice long exhale. Take a few more intentional breaths, nice and deep through the nose if you can. Nice and long on the exhale, either through the nose or the mouth. Whatever you need. One more intentional breath, as deep as you feel is available for you. Nice and long on the exhale. Maybe acknowledging anything that you need. And then when you're feeling ready to move into our first movement, we'll start to make our way onto our backs. And so we've got our first choice coming up. And primarily, we're going to be lying on our backs and bending into one knee. And I'm going to do this with elevating the hips. So this is just going to make a little bit more space into the front of the hip. So you can either take a brick, lying down on our backs, taking a brick underneath the sacrum, just so that the lower back can drape off. Or if that feels too high, even on the lower settings, or too uncomfortable, you can bring in a folded blanket. So either or, whatever feels best for your needs right now. And I invite you to ask that question. What feels better for me? What do I need? I'm just going to move myself back a little bit. And then from here, we're going to start with our right knee by drawing the knee in towards the chest. Just give it a little squeeze here. You might have that left leg bent. You might start to lengthen it out. And again, exploring whatever your needs are. What feels more beneficial for your body? What is in line with your needs? Knowing that you can also take away the brick or blanket from underneath you if you prefer. Knowing that at any time you can come out and change what it is that you're doing, you are allowed to change your mind. And wherever you choose to land, tuning in, checking this is where you feel comfortable, and then allowing the breath to start to soften. Maybe you feel closing the eyes would feel comfortable here. And just noticing what sensations are coming up. Noticing if there's an opening into the left hip, down the front. Maybe noticing the compression into the front of the right hip. And with that compression, we bring nourishment to this area of the body. Take some nice deep breaths. See if you can let the arms become relaxed, taking out any effort here. Take another few breaths here. And then nice and gently, when you feel ready to release, gently releasing the right knee, planting the foot back down, bending into both of them. And feel free to take any movement here before moving on to the opposite side. So again, inviting ourselves to tune in what feels good. What do I need? And then moving into the opposite side when you're ready. So bending into the left knee, interlace the fingers if that feels good around the shin. Or you can go underneath into the thigh, wherever feels comfortable. And then if you want it, you can start to lengthen out that right leg as well. And finding your preferred position and what you need. And then once you're settled in the chosen position on this side, and it might differ, again, that is okay to be different on one side. Just allowing yourself to settle into that, relaxing into the hip, allowing the arms to be released of any effort. Take some nice deep breaths and gently noticing any sensations. Maybe again in that compression on this side, knowing that all this nourishment is to come. Taking a few more breaths. And then when you feel ready to release, allowing the left knee to come down, bending into the knees, finding any movement that feels good here. And again, that might differ to what I'm doing. And from here, we're just going to open into the hips. I'm going to invite you to take away the brick or the blanket from underneath you. I'm just going to come into our happy hips. So drawing the knees into the chest. And if this position feels uncomfortable for you today, then you can either take the knees out to the side, you can hold onto the ankles and just draw the ankles in towards you. And just allow the knees to let gravity pull them down. If you want to take into the full position of taking the feet up towards the ceiling and drawing the knees down. So again, you can hold on to wherever feels comfortable, the ankles or outer edges of the feet or the toes. And you can flex the feet, you can let them soften. Maybe you explore with that a little bit and find what you need. Does it feel good to have that tension and release by flexing the feet and releasing? Maybe you prefer to stay quite passive here. Maybe drawing the feet down towards the bum and allowing the knees to come out to the side feels really restorative. Finding what feels good for you, what aligns with your needs today. Taking some nice deep breaths here. And you're welcome to keep the eyes closed if it feels best for you. And softening the gaze. Knowing that you can still change your mind with any variation you've taken. Take a couple more breaths wherever you are. And then when you feel ready, releasing the ankles or the feet, drawing the knees in towards you. Maybe a little rock from side to side is welcome. And then we're just going to roll ourselves around into a seated position. And we're going to come into a seated Baddha Konasana. So asking yourself that question as we move through our practice. Maybe sit up against the wall here. Take that option. And we're going to take the feet out in front, but the soles of the feet together. Just adjusting our sitting bones there to help us lean forward. So that might mean just shifting any fleshy parts out of the way. It might mean sitting onto a very thin part of your blanket just to allow the hips to roll forwards. And then from here, your options are 2 bricks. So you can take 2 bricks either side. And the more you nestle them up towards the top of the thigh there, the more support you're going to get. So depending on your flexibility and what feels comfortable, remember in Yin, we're always looking for that 60% range of motion. So finding what feels comfortable. If you don't quite like the bricks or you find them quite hard, then you can take a blanket, find the longest edge and just start to roll the blanket up. And then you can wrap the blanket around the feet. And that does a similar thing, except it takes it from the bricks being supported at the top of the thighs and keeps it down into the feet. So finding what feels good for you, that feels quite nice for me. Wrapping those feet up. And you can start to fall forward if that feels good. You can use the hands as kickstands to keep yourself lifted. Or you can start to stack. Have a play with it. Nothing is out of question here. You can find some bricks in between there. You can bring your bolster in if you feel that's more comfortable. For me, bringing into a forward fold here doesn't really look like much, and it might not for you. You might be able to get really far down and that feel really comfortable for you. But go with what you need today. And follow through with everything that we're aiming for in this class. So rather than trying to get a big extension of the pose, is that what your body's asking for? Is that what you need? So just finding ourselves in a bit of a forward fold here. You're welcome to round into the spine. You can take a brick there for the head, allow the forehead to rest. Maybe you bring in a little bit of acupressure by finding the very center of the foot whilst you're here. It's a really nice place to pop the thumb on and just massage into it. You take that back underneath your blanket. Find that little pressure point right in the center, the top part of the foot. Finding your kidney 1 acupressure point, which is really nourishing the body. And this is the beauty of a practice with options, is that we can tailor make it. And any practice that we attend or for ourselves should always be led by ourselves. There's any time we want to do something instead of, then we should always tune in and listen to that. There is no right and wrong, just what is. And again, as always, if you've come into a position you want to change your mind, feel free to change it. Wherever you've settled, allowing yourself to notice any sensations, any tension. See if you can let go of anything. You've got a couple more breaths here. See if you can soften into them. Taking a final breath when you're ready. Gently easing yourself out when it feels like a good time for you. And just giving a helping hand to the knees, unraveling props. And I'm just going to windscreen wipe with my legs just to move into the hips, find that freedom. And you can either do the same or work into something different, whatever feels like a counter position for you. And then we're going to come into a wide-legged seat. And again, all options apply here when it comes to your props. So in its simplest variation, taking the legs out as wide as feels comfortable. Remember, we're just looking for 60%. And then see if that feels good for you. We're going to come into something that feels more supported. So maybe some bricks or a bolster in front of you would be a nice support. So we could have a bolster and rest in the head. If you're a little more flexy, you can start to build up some bricks and you can lean onto the forearms. You could take bolster in front. You could start to pile up from the other end and find some support that way. Or you can bring in a chair and rest the head onto a chair as well, which is also a really nice, simple way to find some support. And if you're near a sofa, then that's really handy. So from here, we could have the chair in front of us and just lean the forearms, maybe the head onto the forearms. Wherever you are, just finding what you need. Maybe you sit onto a blanket just to help the pelvis come forwards. I think the chair is winning for myself today, so I'm going to stay here. And just asking the question to yourself, what feels supportive? What feels in line with my needs? What can I let go in? And then once you've found the support that you need, gently tune in into any sensations that are coming up. Maybe you start to notice some emotional needs. And if anything does come up for you, know that you are within your practice that's here to support you through that. Taking a few more breaths. Maybe letting the feet relax. Taking a final breath. And when you start to feel ready to move out of this position, just gently help yourself up, supporting yourself as you go. Gently lifting the knees, walking the legs back in, finding any other movement that feels good. Moving any props out of the way. Here I'm just going to lean into my hands. I'm just going to rock the legs from side to side. And then from here, we're going to make our way into either a pigeon or deer leg. So if you're not quite familiar with those two, if you're windscreen wiping the legs, we're just going to take them over to our right. And so from here, my right knee is bent in front of me. And my left leg is still as it was before, bending into the knee. So if you're familiar with deer, you can stay here. You might want to play around with where the feet go. So it might feel more comfortable having them a little bit open, or you might feel a little bit better drawing the feet in. So find what feels good. I tend to find on my hip, the knees, the feet coming inwards feels better for me, but you might feel equally better with the knee. So depending on any knee discomfort or hip discomfort, you'll find what you need here to support you. And we're primarily focusing on this right knee. So if you need to start putting something underneath here, like a brick, just to support this hip, the left hip, then feel free to do so. So that's your first option. Have a little play around. You can come into this and then come back out and change it into a pigeon if it doesn't feel good for you. Again, we're taking the time to set ourselves up. So maybe you come forward, lean into the bolster so that right leg is compressed. Maybe you come down with the head resting on a bolster. You can also use bricks, folding up blankets, cushions, whatever brings the floor towards you. And then your other option here is for pigeon. So this left leg is what's going to change. So releasing anything out of there. Use your hands to support you as you take the left leg behind you and allow the knee to face down. Now, once you get here, you might think, oh, that's a bit too much. Or you might need to reshuffle that front knee. You can also take a brick and take it to the opposite, so the right hip, to allow it to sit down and feel supported there. And then from there, you can come down to any variation onto a bolster, more bricks, cushions. The head can come down. You can feel free to stay lifted and use the bolster and the arms as a kickstand. So there's lots of options there. I'm going to invite you to ask the question, as we have been doing, what feels most supportive for you right now, today? And that might change. You could take this class again tomorrow and it be a completely different option. For me today, I'm here. So whatever it looks like for you, whatever feels supported of your self-care and what you need. Find somewhere that you can settle into. And as always, you are allowed to change your mind. And just allowing ourselves to settle. Noticing the breaths. Noticing any sensations. But always allowing ourselves the opportunity to check in. Is this still what I need? You've got about another minute here. So making any adjustments if you need. Knowing that this should feel restorative for you and restful. So allowing those adjustments to come through so that we're not experiencing any pain or discomfort.
Taking a few more breaths here. When you feel ready to move, using the hands to support you as you do. And then just leaning back into the hands, gently lifting the knees out of position. And then finding any counteractive position or movement that feels good. And that might be constructed rest on your back with the knees bent. It might be where I am in finding movement. It might be a child's position. And this is the opportunity to invite that exploration for yourself. And then when you're ready, we're going to go into the opposite side. So starting by dropping the legs over to the left, taking any props with you. And everything that applied before applies here. So we have the option of our deer leg, and again, taking the feet out, away from us. Maybe noticing what that feels like, maybe drawing them in towards you. Maybe sticking a brick underneath the hip if it's rolling upwards and you just want to feel that little bit of push forwards. And then if that still doesn't feel okay for you, taking that right leg out behind into pigeon. But if you watch what my knee does. So the knee goes down, so it's facing down towards the mat. And I'm readjusting that front leg. You can have the toes tucked, have them untucked, whatever feels comfortable. And then you can also place a brick underneath the left hip if you want that further support. It's also really nice for that left knee. There's a lot of compression going through that on this position. So lifting up with a brick is really nice relief there. So again, finding what feels good for you. I'm going to take the same thing for me on this side. And bring in any props in, and you might find that you need more props on this side than you did before. Maybe you need to lift up a bolster with some bricks, bring in the mat further up to you. And if you do, then that's absolutely fine. Our bodies are not symmetrical, and so sometimes one side needs more support than the other. And just in the same way that our physical bodies might need more support than our emotional, or vice versa. And then once you've found a position that feels comfortable, restful, noticing anything on this side. Maybe you check in and need to readjust slightly. And just allowing ourselves to settle in. Settle into the knowledge that we are attending to our needs. We're opening ourselves up to listen. And when we listen and act, We can start to set the foundations for keeping our peace. Got about another minute here. Checking that this is still what you need. Taking a few more breaths. And when you're feeling ready to come out, and gently supporting yourself as you do. Bring yourself up. And then again, taking any other movement or position that feels good to counteract. And then this next position that we're going to move into is going to be led by your own intuition. So a position that speaks as being quite restful and nourishing for you. If you're really struggling, then I can make some suggestions, but I invite you to explore those options for yourself. So the first one might be a child's pose, and for that you can take a traditional one, the knees together, or you can take them out a little wider where I am. You can have a bolster in front of you and you can lay down onto a bolster. If it's too low down, you can start to lift up with bricks. Lean onto it that way. You can use a chair. Find a variation that works for you, that feels restful. You can feel safe in. Or you could take a constructive rest, which would be laying down onto your back, bending into the knees and allowing the knees to drop in. So each knee is supporting one another. Or any other neutral position for you that feels comfortable to just check in, reground. Feeling support of any props or the mat beneath us. Maybe just noticing what those needs are. Are they different to when we first started? How have they changed? They feel like they've been met. Or could we continue to move closer to meeting them? Take a couple breaths. When you're feeling ready to move out of this position, gently going to bring ourselves to final hip position. So, as always, the options are going to be given. I'm going to come into a Gomukhasana fold from here. So if you'd like to have a little bit of a blanket to sit on, feel free to grab that. I'm going to start with my legs out just a little bit wider than the hips. I'm going to take my right leg in underneath my left so that the heel's on the outside of the outer hip and my knee is facing into straight ahead of me. And then the opposite leg is just going to do exactly the same but the opposite way. So the heels are just brushing out the outside of the hips and then the knees are together. You might find that they don't come together that easy. If that's so, you can walk the hands forward and shuffle the legs together to sit them back down. You might find that it closes. Doesn't need to have a closure of the gap between the knees. You can be up here and still find what we're doing. If that feels better for you to be in a half load position, then feel free to be here. Your alternative is to take that bottom leg out straight and have the left hugging in, so you could hug in rather than fold, or you can allow it to drop down into a half Gomukhasana. Okay, so the options are there. We're looking for sensation on the outer hip here. So as long as you're finding a little bit of sensation, we will cross over as well. So if you're only finding it in this position on one side, don't worry, we'll be swapping over. To find what works, I'm going to go for the traditional Gomukhasana. And then from here, you can fold or stay lifted. So maybe staying lifted feels good, but you just want to feel a little bit of extra support onto the hands just to lift you up, using the hands as kickstands. Or you can use bricks to drop the head. And just allow that little bit of restorative action to come in. If you prefer or like the idea of folding over, then you can bring a bolster in front and fold onto a bolster. That is a lot of intense sensation. So if you're finding that's too much, then allowing yourself to lift up here might serve a bit better. So finding where you are, if you've got the leg out straight at the bottom, the same things apply. You use the kickstands. You can use the bricks if you want to fold a little bit forward, but it's too much sensation coming down to the mat. You can use the bricks under the head. Or you can use a bolster over. Anything's game. So find whatever feels comfortable for you. And once you're in a position that feels good, I'm going to use some kickstands, I think, today. Settling in. You're welcome to close down the eyes, bow the head. And just Checking in. Is this the correct position for you today? Can I adjust it in any way that it feels comfortable? Knowing that I don't have to stay in a position because it looks a certain way or because it's being led by somebody else. Finding the aim of the position, which is the outer hips. Gentle tugging sensation. And so if we can't describe it as that, we need to adjust. Knowing that if anything becomes too intense, we can come out and change our mind. And a final breath here. Gently lifting ourselves out, unfold, leaning back, lifting the knees. Again, finding any movement. Or bringing in on the opposite side. So we're going to bring the left leg in first. And then the right. Again, taking that bottom leg, so the left leg out straight, swapping it around. Whatever variation you chose. Feel free to choose something different on this side, especially if there's any injury or it doesn't feel right. Checking in with what this side needs. Allowing yourself to soften. Taking a couple more breaths here. When you're ready to come out, gently walking the hands out behind you, releasing the leg. And again, asking, what do I need after that? What do I need to do? My body. And then true to form in the whole wave of what we've been doing today, we're going to come into our last position, which is for our Shavasana. So any option applies here. You can
lay down in traditional Shavasana. You can have a blanket over you. You could lie down with the feet up onto a chair. You could also take the legs up a wall. Or you can take them over a bolster. You could lie on a blanket. So just ask yourself here, what do I need? Do I need to be let down? Do I need a child's pose? Do I need a bolster? What support do I need? I'm going to take mine into a child's position. I'm going to lift it up a little bit to me as well, I think. But I invite you to make your way into whatever position feels restful, where you can let go. And then wherever you found, find somewhere that will release any of those last niggles, making yourself nice and warm. I'm going to final check-in here. What do I need? What do I need to be able to support myself in this last part of our practice so that I can feel relaxed? Do I need a deep breath? Do I need to sigh? Do I need to support my legs or my neck? Once you've settled into a position, allowing the breath to gently guide you towards relaxation. Noticing softness of the exhale. Letting it release any tension. Letting ourselves surrender to the support around us. Just here where I leave you, in your own practice, to gently rest for as long as feels comfortable. Remembering to ask ourselves what we need. Until next time. Namaste.